Hello, everybody, and welcome to Online Privacy and Security for Families, Children, and Youth, Part 2, answering the questions. I'm happy to be back. Last week I did Part 1, and it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. Telling everybody how to protect their families and their children from all the cybersecurity risks that are out there. So if you haven't seen Part 1, I suggest you go watch that. And then, today I'm answering the flurry of questions that we got. We were able to answer a few of them in Part 1, but there were so many that I didn't have time. So here we are back for another round. So for those of you, again, that don't know me, I'm back. My name is Ryan Duquette, and I am a partner at RSM Canada, and I head up the security and privacy risk consulting practice. Again, I'm assuming most of you watched Part 1 where I really introduced myself and my bio was read, so I'm not going to go into everything today, again, about myself. Again, here's my information. My email and on social media. There's the two platforms that I'm on the most. If you want to connect on social media, happy to connect. I'm always sharing tidbits of information and ways to protect yourself and various things. So before we get into answering all the questions, I want to tell you two stories. And coincidentally, both of these situations happened after my last talk that I did last week. So I thought that was quite interesting. Both of these involved getting phone calls from somewhat panicked and frightened parents, and talking about some situations that they were having with their children and cybersecurity matters. And I sort of guided them through some of those challenges. So, obviously there are some lessons learned from both of these, and I thought it would be interesting to tell all of you sort of what happened generically. So the first situation, I spoke to some parents last Friday, and their child received first a text message and then a phone call from a male party that they didn't know. The male party also knew some of this young daughter's friends' names and some other information about this young daughter. And the male party, started to say some very inappropriate sexual comments, which obviously worried the parents. Law enforcement. So what happened there is the young daughter told her 16-year-old older sibling, and it somehow, I'm not sure exactly how, it got known at school to the principal or the teacher or whatnot. And the parents got a call from the principal explaining to them that this had happened. Police were called in, and the parents spoke to the police. It looks as though, or it's sounding as though it might, the police are going to do their investigation, but it might just be sort of more of a prank by somebody else at the school or whatnot, because they had that information. So as I was talking to the parents through this ordeal, one question I had to them, and I wasn't passing judgment by any means. I just asked them, I said, why do you think your daughter told, the sibling? That's fine. But why do you think both of your children didn't come to you and talk to you about it? Why do you think they went and talked to their teacher or the principal or whatnot? And that's how you found out. And they both said, we're not quite sure. So it was an interesting dialogue chatting with these parents and explaining. And I think this is a great message for all, all of us right now that are parents, that it is the time right now as parents to really talk to your kids about cybersecurity, about privacy matters, and about online safety in general. Right, kids are online, especially right now, in the Greater Toronto area and abroad and other places in Ontario and throughout Canada. Kids are doing online schooling. They're now playing with their friends online, and I don't think there's ever been a time where kids have been online as much as they are right now. So it's really the time for us as parents to have that conversation with your children and encourage them to come forward, even if they think that they've done something wrong. Because likely, the chances that they haven't done anything wrong. So, so please take that time to do that and have that conversation with your children. I think it'll be valuable for you to do that. The second story happened a few days later. And again, another mother called me, and this was a situation where her child was playing online on a game. And I think I mentioned one of the games in my first presentation. And there are some chat programs out there that you can use. And somebody, I guess they needed to get into a dialogue with somebody to help them in the game or something like that. So they ended up talking to, I guess, essentially a stranger. And I'm not sure. I think there was some payment involved in something. I didn't quite get the full story, but the child was having some issues, and mother agreed to this payment to help this person build this world or whatnot, or build a server or whatnot. And mother was involved in that. I guess there were some challenges in paying the person online. So the person via a chat program told the child, well, here, let me help out. Here's a link, and I want you to install this remote desktop application or a remote accessing tool, and I'll come into your computer and sort of help you make this payment. So the child did that. The child installed this program and then essentially gave full access to the computer to this other party. Then the child was locked out of their chat application. The attacker took it over, changed the passwords, locked them out, started sending out emails to all the friends and whatnot, and also tried to attack from the cyber realm other profiles. The child's other profiles, and also the mother's PayPal and email, which was probably linked to some of the payment accounts for the child. So a lesson to be learned here is, please do not give anybody access to your computer. Do not install any remote desktop application unless you really truly know the other party that you're dealing with. I know a lot of internet service providers will fire up these sorts of tools in order to do something to help you out or whatnot, and I'm normally even a little wary about allowing that. But in this case, it was a complete stranger, had full access to the child's computer, was able to then log in as them into their different portals, scrape passwords and scrapes things like that. So very, very, scary situation. And now this child is locked out of all of their accounts and trying to deal with that. So please be careful. And also, some of these chat applications that your children are likely using, they do allow malware and other malicious things to come through links, to come through that chat. So again, it's just another conversation I want you to have with your children about clicking on things and about clicking on links, and when somebody sends them a link, please don't do that. There's nothing good that's going to come out of it. So just something to be careful of. So I thought that those two stories were very valuable because they happened again between my first presentation and this question period. So okay, so with that, I would now like to jump into answering all the questions, the ones that we didn't get to in the last presentation. I think we were able to answer a good number of them on the first presentation. So again, if you haven't watched that, please go back and watch that, or some of these questions might not make a lot of sense. Okay, here we go. The first question is, what kind of information or photos should we not share on social media, and what are the principles? In the first presentation, I talked about a number of things that you should protect very, very well. Your name, your date of birth, your address, all those sorts of things. So that is the kind of information that I don't think you should be sharing on social media. Sometimes that gets challenging. Again, I showed a picture in my first presentation. It was all blurred, pardon me, of somebody, a parent with their children, and it showed the school and it showed the teacher's name and all that sort of stuff. And I showed you how quickly I could get other information about that family. So again, I think in some of the photos, we share too much information. And you might not, have a picture of your child standing in front of their school, but I've seen lots of pictures of children that might go to private school, and they might have, their emblem on their shirt, or other kids wearing, school, paraphernalia or whatnot, hats or whatnot. So just be a little bit careful about that. I am also very cognizant about what pictures I share on social media and what else I might be giving out. The location I live, or identifiers of where I live, or things like that, or what is in the background. I've seen so many pictures that people post on social media where they have, identifying information in the background of them, and it's not very hard to zoom in on that shot and get that. The other thing to consider about posting photos is baked within a picture, a digital picture, is something called EXIF data. And it is data about that photo. And it is sort of buried in the code of the the digital picture. And you can go and look that up, right? There are various tools out there that you can just load a picture into, and it will show you all of that EXIF data, the date, the time, the camera that it was taken on, all sorts of information, including sometimes GPS information. If you take that photo from a cell phone or another camera that is GPS enabled. Most social media outlets out there, providers will strip that EXIF data when you post your picture online, but not all of them do. So you have to be very, very careful to make sure that if you are putting, photos online that have that information in it, GPS data, for example, that information is going to be stripped out. There was a case last week involving U.S. politics and one of these sort of social media platforms where people were posting all this information. And, security researchers and others were just able to go in and gather all the EXIF data from all the pictures, and it showed all this relevant, material. So be careful about that. Also, when it comes to photos, there's another trend that I see lately. It's not really a trend, but it's a requirement now for a lot of online courses and things that people are taking, and children as well. Sometimes I know others that have taken certification courses and whatnot, and now that we have to do these from home, or you have the option to do them from home, what these places are requiring you to do now, to prove who you say you are, and you can't just log in as anybody, is you have to take some sort of identification and hold it up in front of the camera. And I'm very cautious about that because, our identification has lots of personal identifying information on it. If we were to go to one of these places, we normally just have to show them that information, and they go, okay, yes, I can see that you are Ryan Duquette, and off you go, you write your examination or your certification. Now, if I'm putting it in front of a camera and it's being captured somewhere, I want to know, what that other third party is doing with that information. Are they storing it or whatnot, and how are they storing it? So I'm a little cautious about doing that. But that's a little bit of a sidebar here. So just be careful about things like that. Okay, question 2. Where would you direct people to find information on best practices for what information is legally allowed to be collected and how it should be stored securely? I work for a nonprofit, and we collect information from clients for grant reporting, evaluation, etc. And we are interested in learning more about online privacy and security, especially because many of our clients are youth. Great question. Absolutely great question. And I'm going to be following up on this question. I would be happy to talk to anybody. This is obviously a corporate request, not somebody just for their themselves or their kids. That is the type of thing that we do at RSM Canada. We help our clients with their cybersecurity, with privacy impact assessments, with making sure that there's storing any personal identifying information about their clients or their employees properly. We help organizations with that. So if any of you are listening to this and you have a need for your organization, for any of that sort of information, cybersecurity matters, or responding to a breach, or protecting your data overall, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you, and I'll follow up with this person around this one. Okay, number 3. For kids looking to set up an online business or a not-for-profit program, that's great that kids would set up a not-for-profit program. Is there a course you can recommend that they can attend that will provide them safety and privacy considerations? Great question. And I think that's amazing that we encourage the youth of today, to set up online businesses and, other programs and have a bit of a, online presence. I think that's really, really important. When it comes to courses, there are a variety of them out there. I would just Google privacy courses. I know there is an organization called the IAPP, which I belong to. They more offer, certification courses for, privacy certifications and whatnot. But there are a lot of members on there. You can reach out to some in your local area. But when it comes to just kids learning about privacy and maybe businesses, again, that slightly goes into more of the corporate world. I'd be happy to chat to this person, if they want to contact me about setting up a business and what you should be doing properly. However, there are a lot of other platforms when it comes to setting up an online business out there that will help you with this. The Shopifys of the world, for example. If you set up a business through them, there are resources that they will help you out with to make sure that you are doing things in the right manner. So, look at places like that as well to see if they offer any resources. Okay, next question. How do you turn off listening on a cell phone? Turn it off. I guess that's the major, and even sometimes not. I know others that will take their cell phone and put it into something called a Faraday bag, which is in essence a small bag that will block any communication coming to their phone or whatnot. That's really challenging. In the first presentation, I showed you how to go in and take a look at all the various applications that are, using your microphone or using your camera or want access to those things, maybe not using them at that time. So I recommend, again, going in and checking those settings to see, what is using those. But when it comes to actually, turning off your whole phone, again, that's where you would have to literally shut down everything and shut down the phone itself. But, it's normally not, our phone itself. It's the applications and the things that we do that are listening to us. Right. So, again, all the applications that you use that are accessing your microphone, some things you need to talk into your phone, they might be, listening, or other applications such as, the assistants we use, the Series of the world and whatnot. So then the phone itself is actually listening to you. So you might want to turn that off. So, okay, great question though. Okay, next one. There is a surge towards online protection because of Facebook, WhatsApp, and Insta as the latest examples. And there's a mass exodus to the chat app Signal to protect privacy. But one can just delete the apps. But for the bigger companies like Google, how would one delete our online information from getting out? Okay, so there's a lot in this question. Yes, there is a bit of a shift these days from a privacy perspective to people moving over from WhatsApp, and WhatsApp was in the news recently. And various famous people out there, Elon Musk's of the world and others, sort of tweeted about it. And there is a move now for people to go to more secure chat apps like Signal. And I've been championing some of these apps for many, many years. So I encouraged, and when I saw Elon, tweet that out, I was quite happy. However, just going and deleting, your Facebook app on your phone really doesn't do anything. It doesn't delete your profile. It doesn't delete all the information that you had up on your Facebook profile. It just deletes the app on your phone. So if you truly want to not use, a various application and, whatever it is, just deleting it from your phone is not really doing anything. You have to go into that social media profile or whatnot and actually go in and delete your profile from that organization itself. And there are a variety of different ways to do that, obviously, depending on what you're using. So the other ones, for the larger companies, how would we delete our online information from getting out? Again, I think it depends on what information you're talking about. If you have a Google account, for example, and you don't want that anymore, you would, again, have to go in and delete that whole account. and try to to do it that way. If it's just what you're typing into Google, your browser, information and whatnot, well, that's a little bit more challenging. There is, the right to be forgotten, and you can, go and Google that or use any other browser you want to look that up, and a variety of different ways to request that companies, remove your information. So if that's of a concern to you, find the company that you want your information to be removed from, and you can request that they remove you or remove your information, so to speak. So, okay. Another question about cell phone listening to you. So we just answered that one. We'll skip that one. Okay. The next one: if several family members sign in using the same credentials, can they use a single password protector system? Well, yes, but I don't encourage everybody, using the same credentials. I highly encourage you to set up various profiles. Let's say we're talking about a computer here, and they're logging in using a computer. I highly encourage you to set up individual profiles for each person. As a parent, you can still have, the password to sign into that. So if you need to go in and check into your child's activity on their profile, you can do that. But I really encourage that. And I also truly encourage that if you have, bought a computer from a store, brought it home, and just fired it up, and everybody is now using it. I think in the first presentation, I talked about, user rights and setting up a guest profile on your computer and not using the admin profile by default. And I think I mentioned that I do that on a lot of my computers. I am not yes, I'm the admin. I have the admin credentials, but I use the computer as a guest. And I encourage you to do the same. Set up your children and set up yourself as a guest account on that computer. So then everything is a little bit more locked down. It's a little bit easier for things to be, different and different profiles. So if you are talking about, credentials signing in for, let's say, social media or whatnot, like you have a Facebook account and everybody, the whole family's using it, that's a different story. But I'm assuming for this question, they were sort of talking about a device. And this also goes back to encouraging, your children to protect that information, to protect their information. So if you are all sharing the same account, that's not really encouraging them to have their security on the brain, and to protect their information. So I encourage you to have them set up their own account, or you help them with that, and get them used to changing their passwords and doing all this thing themselves, rather than you just doing it for them and they just log in. So. Okay. Question: do you have any paid email services? Is that worth the money over using Microsoft or Gmail? Well, yes, I do have some paid email services that I use. I use a variety of different email services for a variety of different things. However, I do see value in free services as well. I think I talked about in the first presentation about using, burner apps, that allow you to, fire up a email address and a phone number and a fake name that you can use for a variety of different things. Well, a lot of these free email services, you can just log in to Gmail tomorrow and create a fake account. So I do encourage the use of those for a variety of different things. I try, not to use my real email unless I really, really have to. Obviously, my work email I give out, that's work. But my personal email, I try not to use it unless really necessary. So I have a variety of different burner accounts set up for a variety of different things. And my kids do the same. I think I told the story in the first presentation of, my children will come to me when they need to input an email address into something and say, "Hey, Dad, can we fire up another email account that I can use for whatever service or product they were using." So, however, for my day-to-day work, obviously at RSM Canada, I do use, legitimate, email programs for that, and also my personal use as well. I use paid tools for that. Okay. Let's see here. The next one. How do I keep my child safe during online learning while their images are broadcast to others watching the same class? Great question. So I think I talked about this a little bit in the first question that I answered about pictures and what you should be sharing and not sharing. So again, if your child is doing online schooling and they're having to be on video and talking to the teacher and talking to the class, I would be very careful about what's behind them, right? Identifying information behind them, or sharing their room, things like that. Or sharing other information. Just be very careful about that. So I would, almost like what I've done here is set your child up with a bit of a blank slate as a background that they can use to do their schooling. The other thing, though, that we have to be a little bit more cognizant of parents, and it's a constant struggle with me with my children. So I'm assuming it might be for a lot of you with children, is if your child is in school and they're on camera and they're on audio like I am right now, any other noise throughout the house, right, is obviously being potentially being listened to by others. So if you are having a conversation with your spouse or another child, or a workplace conversation, that could be listened to by somebody. Now again, if it's a grade 3 class, it's going to be a teacher and a bunch of younger children, so 8-year-old children, so not a lot to worry about, but still. The other aspect, though, that I'm seeing with my children, you're probably seeing the same, is because children are online now, speaking with friends and whatnot, they almost like to walk around. They can't walk around a schoolyard or go through the neighborhood and just talk to each other. So they walk around on FaceTime or other applications just all the time, just talking. And I've had numerous situations where I've been in the kitchen talking to my children, and I hear some noise beside me, and then I hear parents speaking, right? And I realize that one of my children is live, so to speak, with one of their friends, and I can hear the parents having a conversation on their side. So just something to be cognizant about as well. And so I talk to my children about that, and how I'm not comfortable with again, something listening to me 24, well, not 24/7, but all the time. So just to be a little bit careful about that. The other aspect to consider, though, and again, this isn't about broadcasting images, but when it comes to children with online school, is protect your passwords, or have your child protect their passwords. I'm sure some of you have heard that in the past few weeks, there have been a few, they called them hacks, into school systems, where somebody was able to come into the learning environment and do some malicious things, and show the students some things that were not appropriate. And there definitely could have been somebody hacking their way in, but my feeling is it was probably just somebody that had one of those students' credentials, and they were just able to log in as that student or another student and just do all the malicious things that they were doing. So again, coming back to protecting your passwords, protecting your login, that information. I think schools need to do a little bit better when it comes to this. I think now that we're all online, they're doing a little bit better. But I remember when my children were young and there was, computer systems in the school, I remember going in, to the parent teacher interview, and there was a poster up on the wall with every student's names and their passwords for them to log into their to their school account. This was when my children were quite young, but I remember asking the teacher, I'm like, well, why do you have everybody's passwords up there? And she was like, well, so it's when the students are in the class, they can just glance up there and see it very quickly. And I said, okay, that's handy, but in essence, what you're doing there is you're teaching children not to protect their passwords. And I think this is really wrong. So I don't know if that sunk in, but at least that's my opinion. It wasn't very secure. We got to start teaching our kids very young to protect their passwords, and not, have it up on a wall for the whole school or the whole classroom to see. Okay, next one. How do I monitor safety and age-appropriate content as a parent when I don't understand the technology? Are there trusted resources for parents who want to learn more about internet security and the technology my teen is using? Great question as well. And again, this one is challenging because, like I said in my first talk, you can learn all about, an app or, a chat program or something, and you could try to dive deep into, the privacy or what's going on with this one program. But, as well as I do that your child will probably just pivot to something new tomorrow, or a new game or a new thing. So it's really, really hard to keep up with all of this. I try to do it as much as I can, but it's challenging. What I do is, when my children request an app from me or whatnot, I do a little bit of research into it as best as possible. But again, even I can't keep up with all of the apps and things that my children are using. And I think that's why it's important to talk to your children and educate your children on this, rather than trying to, lock everything down from your perspective, because they will just move on to something else. That being said, there are different monitoring tools out there. I think I mentioned in the first presentation about different extensions on your browsers. You can put on to sort of limit things. If you look at things like Netflix or other streaming channels, there are various ways that you can set up, age appropriate, areas for your children, and you can lock out, different areas with a password and whatnot. So a lot of these applications do use various, ways, to sort of, stop your child from seeing inappropriate content. Again, do some research and look up, if it's a certain app that you're interested in, look up if there's ways for that. There's lots of resources out there for that. Okay, and I think this one is kind of similar. Are there easy to understand resources for parents to learn how to adjust security and content settings on my child's devices and accounts? Again, similar. Again, it really depends on your children's devices and accounts and what you're looking at. Do a little bit of research and to see what's out there. There are lots of government resources on how to, help secure, browsers and whatnot. I do have a good friend. Her name is Cat Code, COODE. And, she runs an organization called Binary Tattoo. Go look up her website. She's always posting lots of information online and whatnot. That's probably, to me, that's how I keep up with everything. Is instead of trying to go out and do all this research myself, I just follow on Twitter or on other places a bunch of people that are in this realm, like myself and others, like Kat. I follow her and others, and normally through sort of just glancing at what they're talking about, I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. I didn't know about that, and I didn't know about that, and that's great. So that's normally how I get my information now, rather than scouring the web and trying to read all these various websites. I just follow people, to get the latest and greatest information. Again, when it comes to security, it's challenging because I don't know what devices you're talking about. But for example, an iPhone, there's tools out there called, like iVerify is a great application you can install on your phone, and it walks you through all these different security settings. There are others for Android or whatever your device that you're using. So I encourage you just to do a little bit of research on that. Okay, next one. What are some of the risks and dangers of video games and social media, and how should I talk to my child about them? Great question. I'm not going to get into the whole debate about violent video games and all of that. That's a whole other situation, and I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, so I won't discuss that. But to me, from a cyber perspective, the greatest risk and I guess danger right now in relation to video games, and I talked about this in the first presentation, is that most of the video games that our children play right now are online, obviously, and are they're playing with people from all over the world. A bit of a challenge. Playing with strangers, right? Challenge as well, and a lot of them have chat applications built right into them, so you don't know who's saying what, right? And that's really hard. That's really hard to keep up with that. And again, so I think that's where you need to sit down with your child and have that conversation. and encourage them to come forward to you, if they see anything. But there's been numerous times where, I've been sitting with my child watching them play a game, which I encourage you to have your child show you these games as well. I think they will like to show you those games that they're playing. And, I remember seeing a few times in the chat, a few kind of, I'm not so happy about that sort of moments. And that's where you can sit down with your child and say, hey, does this happen a lot? Or what do you see on here? Or what's going on? And you'd be shocked. And I'm assuming your child will probably open up to you and tell you everything. Social media is the same. Again, the risks for me of social media, I'm not going to get into, influencers and having your kids look at all that stuff. But for me, the risk and the danger of social media is, again, your child being, able to be, befriended or whatnot, or connected to complete strangers. So I would encourage you to, somewhat lock down your children's profiles. Again, that's challenging. And just encourage them that, if a stranger tries to connect with them, not to talk with that stranger, and don't post a lot of information on social media. So, go to your child before they post anything and talk to them about that. Okay. And the last question, how much information should kids share on the internet? That's a hard one. That's a really, really hard one to say. For me, I'm a little bit more cautious, and I work in this world. So my feeling there is barely anything. But again, I think that depends on who they're sharing it with, right? If they're sharing it with, family members and friends, okay, that's a little bit better. That's fine. You want to share photos with a grandparent online, okay. Let's go ahead and do that safely. But when it comes to sharing information on social media and sharing information on these chat applications to strangers and whatnot, that's where I'm like, we have to be very, very careful about what we're sharing there. So how much, I don't know. That's a very a hard thing to answer. It depends on you, really, and your risk tolerance and whatnot. I think the better question there, or the better thing that we should consider there, is not how much information should kids share on the internet, but how much information should parents share on the internet about their children. I think that is something that's far more interesting for us to speak about. I see way too many, parents sharing information about their children, sharing pictures, sharing all this stuff, without even talking to their child about it, and not realizing that everything they're sharing about that child is probably going to be there forever. And it's truly, and I can say this because I've worked in the police realm and the cybersecurity and privacy realm for a long time. When you do that, you are increasing the risk of your child's identity being, potentially stolen and used by malicious actors for things. The more information you put up about your child, so be very, very cautious about that. And also, you can go and Google this. I think there's a few cases now where children, when they got to, I think, the age of 18, have turned around and sued their parents for putting up information about them their entire life that they cannot take down now. They cannot remove any of it, and won. So be very cautious about that. You have to remember, what we put on the internet will stay there. It's hard to get it taken down. And, if we're putting up things about our child that could affect them, in the future, from getting a job or whatnot, that's not a good thing. So just be very, very cautious about how much information you put up about your children. Okay, so let's get back. I think we answered all the questions here. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, and I'm just going to go to the last slide and say thank you. Thank you again very, very much to the University of Toronto and to the University of Toronto Mississauga Alumni Association for inviting me out to give now these 2 talks. I've done lots of talks over the years in this realm, and cybersecurity and data protection, and there are always lots of questions, and it's always a lot of fun for me to come and do this. So again, there's my information. If you have any other questions that we didn't answer in the first presentation or in this one, please feel free to reach out to me. And for those of you that had these questions more about your corporate environment and your company's protecting data, reach out, and happy to have a conversation with you about that. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, and I hope you are all safe, and have a great day, everybody. Thanks.